Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about my term paper. I decided to do a research paper on a issue going on in the United States right now, and the issue that I chose was homelessness. So, first of all, homelessness is something that's been affecting the United States since it was founded. There are always homeless, and there will almost always be homeless. But there are a few psychological theories that can help us maybe figure out some solutions and give us some insight into homelessness. So first, I'm going to give you some statistics. On any given night, 643,000 people are homeless in the United States. 25% of those people suffer from mental illness like schizophrenia, depression, and bipolar. 12% are veterans, 13% are fleeing domestic violence, and 11,000 LGBTQ youths are homeless. Now, this is from a snapshot in time, so basically, or a point in time count. Basically, in January of 2015, the United States picked a night, and every community tried to record numbers of homelessness and a few other statistics, and this is what they came up with. They do it every other year so that the statistics can change and we can discover if we're moving forward or if we're going backwards. So the second thing I want to talk about is what is homelessness. So many people think of homelessness as people who live on the streets, people you see begging for money with signs, things like that. And that is a type of homelessness. That's, nobody's going to deny that. But that's not the only type of homelessness. Veterans are homeless, youths are homeless, and the homelessness that you guys think about probably that first pops into mind is called chronic homelessness, where people can't get out of their cycle of poverty, and they often use drugs and other things like that, and that causes their homelessness. So veterans are homeless because a lot of times they get back from war with a disability. And these disabilities cause them problems where they can't work, they have huge medical bills, and this kind of turns into a vicious cycle, and they end up getting homeless, which is a huge problem because they're protecting our country. Youth homelessness looks a little bit different, actually. Homelessness of youth is hard to gauge and hard to figure out because youth homelessness, they often are staying at friends' houses every night. They're flip-flopping, couch surfing, and doing those things, and they don't think of themselves as homeless because they still go to school, they still have clothes on their back, but often they are fleeing neglect, a neglectful family, an abusive family, and in the LGBTQ situation, which is a majority of the youth homeless right now, they are fleeing because their family doesn't understand them, and they don't feel safe where they are. So they decide that being homeless is better than staying with their family. So third thing we're going to talk about is a few ways that homelessness, a few things that maybe could give us some homeless insight. So I think during my term paper, I'm going to focus on social categorization, implicit attitudes, and attitude shaping, and stereotypes. And these are all things that we learned about in class this semester. The deeper homeless issue can be solved with some of these theories and misconceptions. So these misconceptions can be changed because of these theories. So first of all, there are some examples from class that I'm going to use. According to McCrae and Bodenhausen, given basic cognitive limitations and challenging stimulus world, perceivers need some way to simplify and structure a person's perception process. In this quote, they're talking about social categorization. And basically, they're saying that a person's perception needs a simpler way to understand things. So people put things in categories and they group people together, and this is called social categorization. So what I believe is that Because of social categorization, many people group together homelessness into the chronic homelessness category when actually they might face the veteran homelessness category, the LGBTQ homelessness category, or the youth homeless category. Family homeless is also another example. So I believe that this can show that. Another experiment that we learned about during class was by Payne in 2001. Basically, it was about association and implicit attitudes. People were faster to pick out a black male with a weapon than they were, and then they would make mistakes. So, like, they were shown a black face with a weapon, or they were shown a black face with a tool, and many times people thought it was a tool, or it was a weapon and not a tool, when all in fact it was a tool. And that's just because our implicit attitudes cause us to believe that race is a huge factor. Another study on racial categorization and stereotypes showed that African Americans are more associated with the dangerous homelessness, not the lazy homelessness. And this is also a problem because people are less likely to come up and help out homeless in situations like that. So then there are also some examples from outside of class. Daniel Batson made an effort to say that if someone was empathetic to a member of a stigmatized group, homelessness in this situation, they would be more empathetic to the group as a whole. So let's say that you're with someone and you see that they're homeless, but you realize that it's not their fault that they're homeless. They're homeless for multiple other reasons, and they aren't taking advantage of some of the public things we have in process to help people, like shelters and soup kitchens and such a thing. If you start to feel empathy for that person and you start to think of them, next time you see a homeless person or a homeless group, you can start to feel empathy for the whole group as a whole. There are a few other things that I found. For example, racial or implicit bias also affects doctors. They are more white doctors have been found to be they would prefer white patients over black patients. And so in this situation, I believe that medical debt can cause homelessness and poverty. And in these situations, white doctors are less likely to explain to black patients the procedures, the cost, and things like that, and therefore black patients aren't getting the same knowledge that white patients are, and this is a problem with implicit bias. Another example are stereotypes. Basically, similar to social categorization, we need a faster way to think of people in our minds. So, we stereotype them, and in this situation, most of the time, the stereotype for homeless is that they want your money for drugs, and that they abuse drugs. And in these situations, occasionally that is true, or maybe most of the time that is true. But what about those few people who want the money to actually maybe get their family who's living in a car a few blocks away some shoes or some food for that night? I believe that looking into stereotypes and figuring out why people do it and figuring out how to break these stereotypes could maybe help people understand homelessness a little bit more. So basically, that's what I have. If you guys have any questions, I would love to answer some questions. Stereotypes, social categorization, and implicit attitudes and implicit bias are really the three key factors that play into homelessness, and they are things that we can look into to find examples and solutions, and I can't wait for my term paper and to understand everything about that. All right, thank you guys very much.